Hi, I'm Alex Benestelli, Music Director here at St. James by the Sea in La Jolla. As you know, we're building an incredible new organ for our church. And despite the pandemic, things are progressing, and the construction of the new organ is underway. Over the next months, I want to share with you where we are and how we got here. There will be lots of fun photos and videos that tell our story, and I want to take the opportunity to highlight and celebrate each of them. Since we started the project in 2017, the most important member of the team has been our organ consultant, Thomas Sheehan. Tom is the cathedral organist and associate director of music at Washington National Cathedral. Maybe you've seen him on their weekly broadcasts that have become so popular during the pandemic. He's the one at the organ console accompanying the service. Tom is an expert in organs, and he's been the independent third party that has guided me, Father Mark, the organ committee, and the St. James Vestry through this whole process. He made a report on the failure of our previous organ, helped the vestry plan for the new organ, gathered proposals from organ builders, and guided our organ committee conversations and fielded our questions along the way. Now he's working with the Parsons Rosales team on the overall design of the new organ, as well as the intricate details that I don't know enough about, but will make the organ truly successful. I want to take this opportunity to thank Tom for being such a strong advocate for St. James, for helping us so well along the way, and for his vision for what this new organ can be. Tom, thanks for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you here on the Organ website and involved with the Organ project.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks.
Tell me, what was it about St. James that made you excited to work with us?
Right. Well, first of all, I just haven't been involved with too many churches on the West Coast, so there was a geographical part of this to me that was just really exciting to get out to the other side of the country. But also, the church has a really great musical presence going on, and I think it's just spectacular. When I came to visit a couple of years ago, it was just wonderful to see the choir at work, the congregation singing so strongly, just a fantastic community of people working together, doing the thing that I think is so important for churches, which is making music together.
Thank you. I obviously share those values and those sentiments about St. James, and is key to what drew me here too as director of music. Around the same time, not too much farther
That's
back.
Right. Yeah.
When you became involved, it was pretty early on.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you for coming to visit us all the way back then, and then continuously throughout this process. It's been really helpful.
And really fun too for me.
Good. It's been fun for all of us. I'll say that on behalf of the whole community, the organ committee and the vestry and Father Mark. We've all really enjoyed the process, getting to know one another better, and of course, getting to know the organ as an instrument much better. Right. And to that point, I wonder what your take is. What makes an organ successful in a church room? What is it about the space
in a given room? Yeah. So it's a big question, obviously, but I think the number one thing that I would think about is how it's going to be used in its day-to-day life, so to speak. How the program needs an organ to function. It's at St. James, I know we talked a lot about this early on, that it was just imperative that it be able to successfully lead congregational song and accompany choral music, but that it also be a standalone solo instrument. That was a really important part of this as well. So there's that part of it, how it's going to be used. And then there is the architectural space in which the organ is housed. And in the Anglican Episcopal tradition, very often we have organs at the front of rooms, and we have organs on the side of the front of rooms, which is exactly how things are at St. James.
Yes, we're familiar with that setup here.
Right, of course. But that's actually, in some ways, the worst place to put an organ acoustically, because the sound has to turn a corner to come out. So in continental Europe and in many other denominational traditions in America, you'll see the organ at the back of the room speaking directly out. And that's due to musical differences and liturgical differences in the way these churches function. But when an organ is put up front, on the sides, in chambers, in essentially another room from the church sanctuary, it needs to have a certain commanding authority to get out of those chambers and turn the corner and get out to the people so they can hear it properly. So I think that's...
Could I just interrupt you for a quick second?
Yes,
because I think that's really important. And I think those who remember our previous Austin organ would say that it was very commanding to the point of being too harsh. What makes the organ have that presence of the room without being too aggressive?
Right. So that's a really good point as well. So there's different ways that an instrument can hold authority in a room. The Austin did so oftentimes with low wind pressures. That's a very important part of the organ building fashion that it came from. And also lots of high-pitched sounds in the choruses. So the choruses build up sort of vertically. Mm-hmm. As the organ gets louder, you get higher and higher pitches, smaller and smaller pipes. For a more sort of gentle, warm, supportive sound, you're going to want exactly the opposite, really. Higher wind pressures to just move more air, just physically move more air, and also more low-pitched sound. So instead of this sort of vertical buildup, you have a horizontal at the same time, so you get this sort of pyramid effect. There's more sound at the low end and less at the high, while that's still important. And St. James, though it's a big church, it's not a huge church. And very often, the larger the building is, the more high pitch you need. but St. James, I think, can afford to have this sort of warm, supportive approach to the sound. It doesn't need to be shouting in order to
and the architecture at St. James is sort of broad. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have a ton of height, it doesn't have an extremely long nave, but it is a broad church. And I think we're trying to mimic that in the sounds from the organ.
That's right. And also that because of this breadth of room, and because of, like you say, it's not a high ceiling, that means the organ's just physically close to you as well. Even though it's around the corner and in the chambers, it's not that far, which means if it's very aggressive and borderline shrill kind of sound, you're really going to notice. At the cathedral, exactly, right. At the cathedral where I work, the organ is a long way higher up in the air and a long way further away. And it's a larger space, so you need more of these high pitches to command things.
Yeah. Well, this leads me to my next question, which is, we did a lot of work together over the years, getting to the point where we are, where the new organ is actually being built. What was it about the Rosales Parsons organ that we're building that really made the difference for you? What was it that really stood out, using the attributes you just talked about being successful in the room?
Yeah, well, the number one thing, as we were looking at builders and at different options, the number one thing about the Rosales the Manuel Rosales' proposal that I thought struck me was the integrity that it had to his own style. That it used all of these things that we were talking about, of breadth of sound and a warm, rich sort of supportive sound, but it wasn't doing so just for its own sake. It was totally integrated into a complete style of organ building that he has, and that just came through on the page so much in his proposal, that every stop, every rank in there contributed to that goal without being separated in doing so. They came together and made an organ that did.
Yeah, really. I remember us talking about this. Each part of the stop list and the project had a purpose. It wasn't. It wasn't just there as part of a design. It really contributed to the whole.
Yeah, and sometimes you look at stop lists and they read a little bit like wish lists, or like a toy chest kind of approach, that you look around the organ and you go, well, that's going to be nice, and this is going to be very exciting, and that's going to
and we need that English horn.
we need this, we need that, but then when you put it all together, you realize that it doesn't really build up to anything integrated. And I think that that was the number one thing, that as we were looking at the Rosales proposal, that nobody else quite got to that same level, where every stop was building towards a single drive. And one of the things about that, by the way, that I think really can show that off, is that each stop serves multiple purposes.
Interesting.
Very often,
by that?
Well, very often I think you see in organs that are built with this kind of more haphazard approach, that solo stops are built just to be solo stops. And this solo flute is going to be perfect for this very piece, and that sort of thing. They get too specific. And what that means is, when you put them all together, this is doing this is doing that, this is doing that over here. And instead, Manuel's organs, I find, having played a few of them on one of our trips too, having played quite a few of them, it was a great time. Every stop does everything. Every stop can be a solo sound, every stop can accompany, every stop can combine with every other stop in the organ. You get these limitless possibilities, instead of this English horn is a solo stop.
Yeah.
It can also combine with these other things, and it can do this other thing, and it sounds good in the tenor register and the treble register, and that's just the English horn.
Yeah, one thing that seems to be that way in our organ are the chorus reeds, particularly in the great.
Yes.
And for those that might not be familiar with the stop list, we have these 16, 8, and 4 great trombas that are really substantial reed sounds, but they're also enclosed with the choir division so that they can function as chorus reeds, but you can open them up and bring them out as a solo reed as well. They can do multiple things at the same time.
Right, and that also means that yeah, I imagine, having not heard them yet, I'm very excited to hear them, that all three too will have their own character. So
Hmm.
that each of them can be a solo on their own, doing different things. A lot of times on these organs, the 8-foot is a little bit splashier and a little bit more extroverted than the 16, which is going to be a little darker. And the 4-foot is going to be even more sort of metallic. Yeah. So if you want to have differing solo sounds, you can do that. And then you can also combine them to make one sort of super solo sound. And then, like you say, you can combine them into the chorus as well. And having them enclosed means that then you can even affect the chorus. You can have a more reed-driven chorus, or if you want to just pull the reeds back a little bit, you can have a little cleaner, more upper work-driven chorus. It's just going to be a kaleidoscope of color, this organ.
One of the things that I like most is about our organ is what you just said, that the organist has so many different options for color. And you may want to use the great reed, or you may want to use the choir reed, or the swell reeds, or a combination, and varying combinations of that. But it sort of leads me to my next question: is how do you know what the right size of an organ is? What makes it too big, small, or how did we end up with the organ that we're building?
Okay, so a few different things. The first one is something we've kind of already hinted at, which is size of the room, of course. But there's no good sort of direct mathematical formula about like, this is how big the room is, this is how many people it sits, this is how many pipes it should have. It's not that at all. But looking at the architecture of the room, at the sort of volume of air that it has to interact with, and the placement of it, you end up sort of getting an idea of what it's going to be. But the other big thing is the style of organ that we're building. And I think this organ is going to sit quite comfortably in this sort of post-American classical kind of style with a good sort of healthy English sort of accent on it, which is exactly the sort of music program you're running.
Exactly. Sounds just like our choir.
Right, exactly. Unsurprisingly. So American organs, by and large, require more ranks than other styles, because the American classical design is built on this idea of more softer stops than a lot of European organs are. So there's a misconception sometimes that a bigger organ is going to be louder. A lot of times a bigger organ is going to be quieter, because a bigger organ is going to have more soft sounds. So that's going
bigger
to be
variety of softer.
Bigger variety, exactly. Yes. And that is part and parcel of the American sound as well. So I think the Rosales organ is going to be large, but it's going to be large in the service of its concept and its style, which is all about variety of color.
Well, and it's not unlike our values as a choral program to be singing music from a variety of traditions. We're, of course, rooted in the English-American choral tradition, but especially here in California, we venture out and we sing and have music in our services from a variety of styles and genres.
Right.
And I think that having an organ that's so versatile will only help serve that need.
Yeah, that's so important.
Well, your passion for the organ has certainly come across abundantly in your work here with us. And as we conclude, I want to take the time again to thank you for all of the expertise and time and care and love you've given to St. James and our community. And we just look forward to you continuing to be involved in this organ as it continues to be built and eventually installed here in St. James.
Oh, it's my honor and pleasure. I'm just so happy to be involved in this project. I think it's going to be spectacular, and I can't wait.
Great. We do too. All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
All right. Take care. Thanks again for joining us for this conversation. I hope you'll follow these updates as the project continues throughout the next 18 months. As always, we appreciate your generosity and your giving. You might consider making a pledge or a donation to the Organ Project on our website, stjamesorgan.com. See you next time.